This is an unofficial and unauthorized translation of a Figu publication. 209th Contact. Saturday, May 31, 1986, 11:51 p.m. Billy says, "You've no longer been here for nearly 2 months, my friend." Quetzal says, "That is correct. My duties kept me away from the earth." Billy says, "I understand. I was asked a question that I could not answer extensively, namely with regard to the early societies of Earth humanity. As Fath taught me, the eating of humans took place in various groups, so cannibalism." Quetzal says, "That was, indeed, the case, and even in medieval times, people were still sporadically killed and eaten. In earlier times, however, long before medieval times, cannibalism occurred among the Earth people very often, whereby the killing of those who were to be consumed happened for a variety of reasons. Enemies and prisoners were killed for this purpose. However, it also arose from starvation, violation of territory, and rivalry, etc. This was a common practice among all peoples worldwide, even among the Stone Age people and cave dwellers, etc." Billy says, "Those were really pleasant times." Quetzal says, "I don't think so." Billy says, "With my words, I don't mean that those times and events were actually pleasant but just horrible and cruel. Here, one says that something was horrible and cruel in the way that it was really pleasant, with which the exact opposite is meant." Quetzal says, "A strange expression." Billy says, "That may be. But this is just earthly logic." Quetzal says, "It probably has nothing to do with that." Billy says, "Of course not. You're just a little slow on the uptake today. But tell me about what happens on Jupiter with the polar lights at the North and South Pole, which I saw on the great journey when we circled around the planet. Why are they so nicely round there, while the polar lights of the Earth exhibit somewhat different shapes and aren't always round?" Quetzal says, "The moons of Jupiter play a very important role for this phenomenon, but they are not solely responsible for this. In addition, Jupiter's polar lights aren't always uniformly round. The effects of the Sun are also to be mentioned, which play a certain role in connection with the polar lights." Billy says, "Good, that's enough for me. I don't want to know any more, for then one cannot interrogate me." Quetzal says, "You also should never allow that, for a lot will first become ripe for saying when the right time comes for it." Billy says, "Also clear. But what do you think about suicide?" "I think that suicide is without dignity in every form. Even if a person is fatally ill and full of pain, I think that suicide is never justified and is always undignified in every case. Dignity is only to be spoken of when suffering and pain are endured and the best and highest qualities are learned from this. But suicide, in every form, is and remains an escape from and out of life and from one's own responsibility toward his life's duty and his life's meaning. However, suicide is also an escape from one's own evolution as well as an irresponsible breaking away from one's obligation to exhaust life fully, bear everything with dignity, and endure that which life brings. Suicide, in each and every relation, is a free escape from each and every duty and responsibility towards oneself and towards those who remain, as well as from the evolutionary duties that are to be fulfilled up to the last day of life. And with suicide, in a strict sense, I also associate euthanasia and medically assisted suicide in a direct or indirect form. Suicide remains an ignoble and unforgivable suicide, and anyone who provides assistance to suicide makes himself guilty of murder. That's how I see it, in accordance with the creative laws." Quetzal says, "Your remarks correspond to the truth, so there is probably nothing else to be explained further." Billy says, also good. One has asked me about why the Americans actually intervene in matters all over the world, which don't concern them at all. Do you know the reason for this? Quetzal says, certainly. The Americans have already been striving for some time to Americanize the whole world. The origins of this lie in the First and Second World War, when power-hungry nations in Europe fell into devastating wars. The leaders in America at that time saw an opportunity in the behavior of the power-hungry to spread themselves worldwide in their own way, but in a way that was not the same as the world wars, yet still very effective and in an alleged form of providing assistance or fighting the enemy. More and more, the Americans take on the role of world policemen out of their own grace, without any resistance from the rest of the world, and they heedlessly intervene in foreign quarrels and in other things that don't concern them. The majority of the world will remain silent about this and will even join themselves in the opinion and conduct of the Americans, but not in the least because dependency and fear exist. All of this will still intensify in the coming time because no real opposition exists. Billy says, but what reasons are behind this, then? Quetzal says, as I already explained to you before, the resources of different countries play a very large role, which the Americans want to bring under their control and under their use, which will be confirmed more and more in the coming time, against which the world, as a result of its dependence on America and its fear of America, takes cover in silence and doesn't notice the fact that America, as it has already been doing, slowly but surely Americanizes the whole world, namely with regard to the entire weapons technology as well as with regard to computer technology, which is progressing in leaps and bounds, and various other things. Billy says, somehow, it has always seemed to me as if those irresponsible persons in America who constantly cry for war, the death penalty, murder, manslaughter, and terror see themselves as supermen but see all other people of other nations, races, and religions as subhuman creatures and as dog people and scum. But this is probably also true of all other irresponsible persons of all other countries on earth. Only, I would like to say that it is probably nowhere as pronounced as in America, as well as in Israel, China, and in certain Arabic countries. But in this regard, I in no way speak of all the people of the respective countries but actually only of those irresponsible riffraffs, who advocate or exercise war, terror, murder, and manslaughter, as well as capital punishment, racism, acts of hate, and the like. Of course, in this respect, there can be no talk of those who are peaceful and upright, who advocate love, peace, and freedom in more dignified, humane, and life-respecting forms and who live, think, feel, and act in accordance with this. This must be said, for the wrong impression should not and should never be made that I would basically speak against all people of all countries, concerning their irresponsibility, vindictiveness, addiction to retaliation, and concerning their cries for war, terror, murder, manslaughter, and death. Rather, this is simply and solely concerns all the criminally irresponsible ones and the human despising as well as life-despising creatures, which don't deserve the name of person due to their inhumane and degrading behavior, thinking, feeling, and acting, but which must be designated as scum and beasts in human form. Quetzal says, your words sound very bitter, but they are exactly correct. But now, my friend, I still have a few more interests to discuss with you, which relate to events that will arise in your family, so also your parents and siblings. Also, concerning the group members, I just have a few things to explain, like also. Billy says, okay. Then go ahead. The rest of the conversation was not released for public viewing. The end.